Hello, I'm Rebecca, and this is my plurilingual story. My name is Rebecca, as I mentioned, and in Mandarin, it's called Ling Zhijia. So in Mandarin, our last name actually comes before our first name. So my last name is Ling, and my given name is Zhijia. I was born in Kaohsiung City, a harbor city located in southern Taiwan. The city's name, Kaohsiung, actually has an interesting background story. Its original name was coined in the early 16th century, which is called Takao, Dago, and it was the language of an indigenous group called the Makato tribe. However, the name was changed in 1920. Taiwan at that time was under Japanese colonization, and the Japanese government thought the name Takao is considered vulgar, for Takao in Mandarin can literally be translated as beating a dog. Therefore, they replaced Takao as Takao, and when written in kanji, which is also a form of Chinese characters, is pronounced Kaohsiung. Okay, enough about Kaohsiung. Let's get back to myself. According to my parents, as a toddler, I would sometimes grab a TV remote and play with it as if it was a telephone. And I will mumble different languages. Sometimes identifiable languages are namely Japanese, Mandarin, English. But sometimes my parents couldn't really tell what I was saying. Perhaps it was some made-up language I came up with. As a kid, I had a Filipino nanny. And that is how I picked up some Filipino at that time. However, the only word I can remember is pusa, which means cats. As a kid, I really enjoy watching Japanese animation, and I guess that was my first spark of interest in Japanese. My favorite show was Mentante Conan, Detective Conan, and since it was a detective show, some of the vocabularies I picked up was satsujin, which means murder, jiken, which means incident, higaisha, meaning victim, and shinjitsu, which means truth. In fact, I can recite a famous line from the main character, which is shinjitsu wa itsumo hitotsu, which means there is only one truth. At that time, my mom worked at an international bilingual school, and from time to time she would bring many English picture books from book fairs. I really enjoyed reading them, and sometimes my mom would even read them to me as a bedtime story. Some of the books comes with a tape, and I will listen to the audiobook as I read along. As I entered elementary school, I was introduced to the phonetic characters, also known as 注音符号, b, p, m, f. This is a special phonetic system that we use in Taiwan, and they appear besides written character to indicate how they are supposed to be pronounced. I remember vividly that we had to write in this workbook, which would show us the stroke orders, and as we copy the characters, we will be graded on how neatly we wrote. I found this assignment quite boring at that time, but as I grew older, I found it helpful because it showed me how to write properly and my handwriting turned out to be decent. When I was in the 5th grade, my homeroom teacher asked me if I would be interested in representing our class to participate in a Taiwanese speech contest. Though my Taiwanese wasn't that fluent, my teacher thought I was speech contest material. However, my mom told my teacher that, and I quote, "Her Taiwanese isn't that great. Why don't you recommend someone else? Otherwise, she'd only embarrass herself." I was so discouraged, and from then on, I was reluctant to speak Taiwanese. Like many kids my age, I was sent to English after-school program, and I really enjoyed learning English. Every week, we would have a vocabulary spelling quiz, and if we got a perfect score, we would be given honor cards, which we can collect and trade for prizes. I guess that was one of my biggest motivation to learn at that time. After I graduated from elementary school, my family immigrated to Toronto. At that time, naive as I was, I thought the English I've learned at cram school is quite enough. After all, I felt comfortable speaking to others in English. It was not enough. Having to understand daily conversation is one thing, but learning every academic subject in English was a huge challenge. Something I'll do to help is I'll search every keyword on my electrical dictionary and I'll write them definition in both English and Chinese in my notebook. This was also the first time that I am exposed to French. At that time, the only phrases I knew in French was bonjour and c'est la vie. And all of a sudden, I had to learn about the conjugations and grammar rules. My French teacher had one rule during class, which is all the conversation made in class must be en français, which also explains why the first complete sentence that I've learned back then was Puis-je aller aux toilettes? Please, which means can I go to the washroom? After 4 years in Canada, I returned to Taiwan as a high school student. At that point, many people consider me a bilingual since my English is quite fluent and I'm fluent in Chinese as well. With that advantage, I represented my school to attend many speech contests and Model UN and many other English-related competition or events. After 3 years of high school, I figured out since I'm good at English, I might as well study that in university as well. So I decided to major in English. In the English department, it offered a wide variety of courses, and there are courses in various fields, such as linguistics, education, translation, literature, and cultural studies. Most of the courses are taught in English, but some courses are taught in a bilingual manner. During my 4 years of university, I decided to learn Japanese since I've always been fascinated by Japanese culture and I really enjoyed watching TV shows and animations. I've taken classes outside of school and achieved intermediate level in the Japanese proficiency tests. I've also taken German courses for 4 semesters since it was required for English majors to take an additional language course. I wouldn't say I'm fluent in Japanese and German, but I guess I'm literate in both languages. So, there you have it. Up until this point, my linguistic repertoire includes English, Mandarin, Taiwanese, French, Japanese, and German. Do I identify myself as a plurilingual? Well, even though I'm not fluent in all those languages, I would have to say yes. Language learning is a lifelong process, and I'm looking forward and excited to embark on this amazing journey ahead of me. And that's all for now for my plurilingual story. Thank you for listening. 谢谢。Danke. Merci beaucoup. ありがとうございます。